Hey guys, so today we're going to look at PDS and we're going to look at what the toolbars are, what the pull down menu are, what is it when you open up a blank drawing, how do you go about using the tools to create your site, your drainage, your ground modeling, your road alignments and such, and what the difference is between this and CAD, because I suspect that the people using this will be heavy CAD users. So we're just going to look at that, and we're going to look at it at a high level overview. There's so many commands in PDS, just like CAD, that if you had to do one video going through all the commands, it would be such a long and tedious video that it'd put you to sleep quicker than a bottle of night nurse. So we're going to try to keep this high level, and if I go too far down the rabbit hole, I apologize in advance. And help keep it a little bit more interesting, what we have on the screen is one of our projects that we've done previously. This project is a care home that's located in London. This area here is the care home building. It's 6 to 7 stories high. Here we have a courtyard so everyone can enjoy the wonderful rain-filled summer days. To the east we have a public road, to the west is another public road, and across here is the access road to gain to either one of them, with some parking for the various buses and visitors. Here is a substation. This point of interest is that the local area electric network was insufficient to provide the care home with the power needs the building will require. So in this case, the local electric company, or the local electric authority, they've dropped a substation in this site, in this little corner, to reinforce the local area and provide the power to the building, so people's heart pacers and things like that, heart monitors, won't cut out during the middle of the night. So that's the site, and we have some drainage on this one. Here we have in blue the surface water, and here we have in brown the foul water. Flow, the drainage modeling, just like micro drainage, you can't design combined sewer networks as either foul or surface, so that's why we don't have that's why it's only these two shown. The surface water makes its way up through the building and comes out to here, and the foul water does as well. It comes up through the building up to here, and then they join together, and then they come out and join the combined public sewer network. That's why the two overlap in this area, is for that reason. Here we have a large attenuation tank, which is represented by that node, and here we have a large attenuation tank, again represented by that node. So that's the drainage for this care home development. So let's look at what's on the screen. So like pretty much every other program, you have your pull down menus across the top. They are fixed there. Here we have our layer pull down menu. Here is the standard toolbar, the module toolbar, and it's called the data retrieval toolbar here. So that's and then here you have the command line down here. So that's the setup for what you would get when you open up the PDS program. Looking at the command toolbar, this functions in very much the same fashion as PDS. Along here, this is the active command line, and then this is the command history, and they're separated by this gray line here, so you can tell what's the history and what's the command line, although you should be able to work it out because the bottom line is always your active command line. You can show more history if you would like, and the way you do that is just the same way as CAD. You move your cursor, and when you're in model space, it's always this little square with the crosshairs, the lines going vertical and horizontal, until you get to the command line. Then it becomes the I shape, just like you have in Word. And if you move it up or down until you get, and it changes to this, which is two black horizontal lines with an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. Now right now that line is a solid gray line, but if I left click and hold there, it becomes a bunch of dots. So I know that I've selected this, and I simply, while maintaining the left button, push down, I move up there, get more of the history there. And then if I use my scroll button on my mouse, I can scroll up and down the history. And then if I do it again, move it there, double black line, left click and hold, and then I scroll it back down. I myself am always trying to maximize my modeling area, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure what the actual term is for this space in terms of PDS, but the modeling area. So I always just have just 3 command lines shown, sometimes maybe 2. And you can still, because you can still scroll up and down using the scroll wheel. And if I need to, just like CAD, hit F2, you get your history, your text window, and this will have all the history in it. So, you know, if I'm wanting to see the history, I can go into it other ways. I want to keep this maximized as much as possible. And I only have 3 lines shown because sometimes the active command may have a bit of text here which may be helpful, because of maybe it's just useful for a certain command to have a bit of the history shown, because that active command may have 3 lines of text on it. So that's why I only have about 2 to 3 lines shown. Now let's look at the toolbars in terms of how they move and how they function. So the first thing I would say is that these could be moved no matter, and to suit your preference, and they can be moved just like CAD. You do left click, hold it, and move it, and you make sure that you have to select a area of the toolbar that's not the button, because if you do that, it'll think that you're trying to select the button. So if you hover over the button, you get a little outline showing the area assigned to that button. And also conversely, just really quickly, just like CAD, if you hover on the button, it'll tell you what the command is. So if we move to the end where this little ridge is, it's probably the best spot to try to grab it because it's the widest area that's not a button. And if we left click and hold there, the outline's gone black, so we know we selected this toolbar, and we can just drag it there. Once it's in this position, just grab the thick gray line there, which is the name of the toolbar, and left click again, and you got the dotted lines going all the way around it, so I know I selected it. While holding that left button down, you can move it to whatever position you want, and you can move it to the top, bottom, left, right, whatever, which one tickles you fancy. I personally always just have it up there. Next thing is that the other key thing to mention about the toolbars is that you're limited in terms of the toolbars that can be shown at any point. You just have these 3: your module toolbar, your general toolbar and your data retrieval toolbar, and all three of them function on the same principle. That is that if you want to go to a toolbar, to one of the other toolbars, one of these buttons will represent that other toolbar. And you know that because it has this black little triangle in the bottom right corner of the button. So this one doesn't have it. So if I click on it, there it says delete entity, so it's giving me an action to do. If I just go cancel, come on, cancel, there, it canceled it. If I go to this one though, watch what happens to this toolbar. So we're going to go into assist, we're going to get that assist toolbar. So there, the one that you're in is replaced by the one that you're selecting. And to get out of this, back to the main toolbar, you hit this curved arrow. That takes you back up. So let's try it again. Here we have draw. It's got the little triangle bottom right corner. You click on draw. There, the command bar, the standard toolbar, sorry, is replaced by the draw toolbar. Click on the curved arrow, go back up to the main, go to construct. There, you got the standard toolbar is replaced by the construct toolbar. Go back up to the main. Try it with the module toolbar. So here is horizontal alignment. Click on it. You have all the horizontal alignment. You have the curve button, go back up to the main. Do it with the vertical, go back up to the main. Do this with carriageways. You go back up to the main. Do that with the data retrieval one. Snap settings. There, you got all the snap settings. Go back up to the main. So I think this is one of the good things about PDS compared to CAD is that you don't clutter your screen up with a whole slew of toolbars. You just got 3 main toolbars which get replaced by the one that you want by clicking on a button. So that's really good. There is one exception to this, and it's on only a few buttons, and that is if we go into the assist toolbar, and here this button has that little black triangle. So we got from the main toolbar to a sub toolbar, and if I click on this, instead of getting a sub toolbar, you have a pop-up window with 4 options on it. And for the most part, if you had to go from the main toolbar into a sub toolbar, it won't give you another sub toolbar. It'll give you a pop-up window with all the different options. So that's the one exception to it. So let's go back up to the main. So that's how to move the toolbars, and that's how the sub toolbars work, so you can go in and out of them. Modules. How does PDS break Civil's design into the different groups? We'll just keep it high level, like I said at the beginning of the video, because there's just too many buttons to go into. We're just trying to keep it high level, but I want you to have some understanding of the different modules as we jump around between the buttons, and also be coming back to what happens in the command bar as you go through the different modules. So let's look at what modules there are, and there's different excuse me, there's different places you can go to them, but if we go to File, Proceed Module, this will give you the full list no matter what. And right off the top is the ground model module, and I would just simply say that when you move around, PDS uses these abbreviations. So PGM for ground, PAD for alignment, PHD for highway, etc. So it's a good thing. So it would be a good thing to try to remember and know what these abbreviations are for while you jump around. In this case, we're doing the PGM. We're looking at the PGM ground module, and what that simply is that in that you're drawing your line work for your buildings, for your plateaus, whether it's a bin or a bike store, you're designing your footpaths, you're designing the bunds. Maybe you have the planning requires a noise bund along your site boundary, so you're going to draw that in this. Maybe you're going to draw the wall along your site boundary. It's all those 3D things that are going to help to create your 3D surface, your mesh, your surface mesh. That's what you'd be, if you could make that mesh into a real surface, that's what you'd be walking on if you went to your site, whether it's existing or proposed. And so that's what ground modeling is. And it's also used for interrogating that surface mesh. So you're using it to figure out the contours of your site. You're using it to cut the sections of the site to see to compare existing and proposed ground levels. You're using it to get your volumetrics of soil and pavement materials. So that's what you're using the ground modeling for. You don't use it for your roads. That's what the next three are for. PAD, PhD, POD, alignment, highway, overlay. And basically, PAD is your general roads, your access roads. You can use it for designing the parking bays attached to your roads. And then the next is the highway. So PAD and highway, exactly the same thing. The only difference is the highway, if you have a roundabout or have to use super elevation for your roads, the highway module has a few extra buttons in it, if you will, that to make that possible, to make it much easier to do that design. I tried doing a roundabout design using alignment, and it could be done, but it was a lot more of a headache compared to using highway. So it is beneficial to use the proper module rather than trying to bash through it using the module not meant for it. Next is overlay. So overlay is basically if you have an existing road and it's going to get repaved because it has a few buttons in there basically associated with your volumetrics, your material volumes and such. So if we look at this project, so PAD, PhD, and POD, this access road here was done using PAD, and if I had to do this row from scratch, I'd use PAD for either one of those roads. If there's a case that this here had to be a roundabout, I would have done the roundabout and the approach to it here, and even coming into here using highways, but then I would use the PAD alignment to do the rest of the road coming up to the roundabout and the rest of this road. So that's the difference. If this road was being kept as is but it's being repaved, maybe the camber on the road doesn't meet current code, or another reason, and is this going to get stripped out and repaved, I would use the POD layout module. So, and I would just put a footnote that if you did a access road alignment into this, you can use the highway module to do the approach road to tie into it. So don't think that you're going to have some issue joining both of them up. That will join together, but digress. That's going a little bit too much into detail. Let's look at the drainage modules. So let's go back to this. Next we have the PDD drainage and PPD drainage, private drainage, sorry. Now the difference between the two simply is that one's adopted by the local sewer authority and one's not. Is down to you to maintain it. It's not. It has purely whether or not what drainage is being brought into flow to be modeled and what isn't. So in this case, all the runs here are shown. They're all modeled using flow, so they're all drawn using PDD, which PDD drainage. We don't show any stacks on this, but if we were to model those stacks in 3D to ensure that they have the minimum cover below the slab with the appropriate gradient, which will tie into this pipe here or that manhole, that would be done using the PPD drainage. Most projects are BIM level 1, if that, and in that case, those stack connections, the foul stack, the rainwater pipe stacks, your channel gully connections or your spot gully connections, they don't need to be modeled, and most planning submissions don't need them to be modeled. So happy days, you don't need to worry about it. If your project is a BIM level 2, because most government projects require to be BIM level 2, and most police stations, which is government, sometimes some schools require it to that detail. So in this case, you would do all the drainage in the one, and then once you got the design, you do the stack connections going into it. So that's what the difference is, the two. It's like one is modeled in flow, one is modeled or designed in PDS. So let's go back to the list. Here we got services and then layout design. So services is what the services are for the site: your gas, electric, drinking water, which is potable water, and telecom, and whatever other services you need. Maybe you have cable, maybe you have a sprinkler system or a CTV system. You design those cables and those runs using PSVD services, so that those services, again, you're doing a coordination exercise, you're doing a level check to make sure there's no clashes. That's what that is for. And then lastly, the PLD layout design. PLD layout design is what you're doing when you're in the conceptual stage of a project. Maybe you have a housing division and you got these 50 homes, and the architect wants to put them in these areas, but then you have to work out what the roads are going to look like. So it doesn't have the vertical alignment, it's all about the horizontal alignment and ensuring that the space between the buildings, or maybe other features, maybe a water feature like a pond or a basin, that there's space to run those roads through it, and there's space to have the appropriate curves, because you have to have the curve based on the vehicle's speed. Maybe you need to make sure that that path can have a fire engine going around it. So you're doing that conceptual layout to make sure that it can work, and you don't get down into detailed design and find out everyone's house is going to burn down because you can't get a fire truck down it. That's what that is for. So all these ones are there, and they have various buttons, hence the reason why I'm giving you the understanding of what they are. The symbol digitizing, they don't have any buttons on the toolbars, or their own separate toolbars, and they really don't get used that often, so definitely not going to go into them in this video. But the survey output, that is one of the buttons on the toolbars. You really don't need it, or it's not used that often, so I'll save that for another video, but it is there. So that's the list of the different modules. So let's start taking a look at the pull down menus and the toolbars in a little bit more detail. This